Welcome back to the channel. My name is Brad, and today we're going to talk about GIAX from Nichols Wealth Management. This fund is a call spread fund that has global diversification in the underlying holdings. Currently, they're paying about 24%. So if you understand call spreads like SPY-T, they're doing very similar call spreads, but on the Russell 2000 and not the S&P 500. So their underlying holdings happen to be the Russell 2000, the S&P 500, the NASDAQ, a dividend fund from Vanguard, a development fund being more of an international fund, and then they actually hold multiple different ETFs in international, focusing on other countries such as India and Argentina. They also hold 1% into all of the Magnificent Seven. They have a very diversified portfolio. That is why I like these. I like diversification, so I'm not relying just on the S&P 500 going up or the NASDAQ going up. I have diversification globally. And in my portfolio today, I don't believe I have a good, rounded international fund. So I'm adding this to my portfolio for that international exposure that I'm missing. Just to go over some call spreads, there is some time decay. So these call spreads are going to be written anywhere from 1 day to 7 days. What I have noticed is they're ranging from 1 day to 3 days to 5 days, depending on market conditions. So far, they seem to be just as good as any other calls that I've seen from any of the other funds. Now, keep in mind, time decay is quicker on weekly and daily options compared to longer holding options such as monthly options. When we look at a profit and loss chart, this again shows you how a call spread works. And they're rating their call 1% out of the money. And then they're buying a call 3% out of the money. So that 2% you get capped. Now, somebody's going to say down below, Brad, you don't understand, that's false, that there's time delay. You are correct, but there's time decay on both options. Actually are supposed to cancel each other out. So before you make that comment, go research it and actually find out that they're supposed to cancel each other out from the bought call and the sold call. And if you disagree with that, you can contact the fund manager. You know his name. I think it's, what's that name? Jay. Yeah, call Jay, because this is his graph. So they're going to be targeting 20% yield, but currently they're paying 24% yield. They're also using the 1256 contracts, so it's a 60-40 tax treat. When I look at ROC, currently everything has been return of capital. So how did this fund do? It's a new fund. It's only got 2 months worth of data, but looking at the chart, it is kind of tracking the S&P 500, giving those large distributions, and I can take my 8, 10, 15% with no problem. So I kind of mentioned this was like SPY-T, but it's not quite like SPY-T, but I did backtest this against SPY-T. So when we look at the ending value, GIAX ends up being 51,700, SPY-T ends up being 52, and SPY ends up being 52.4. So very close in their actual performance. Just how they're getting there is two different methods. If I compare this to SPY-T, we're slightly behind, but they just had a distribution, so that's kind of unfair to them because they will catch right back up. And if one part of the index, the Russell, goes up faster than the S&P 500, they'll capture some of that. If QQQ goes up faster, since they own that underlying, they will capture that. If dividend stocks take off, which is more of a safety net, again, this fund will start capturing that. And that's why I like this diversification of GAIX. Not because they're just writing call spreads on the Russell. I like it because they have diversification of all the underlying holdings and not just fixed into the S&P 500 or the NASDAQ. If I grade this scores a 7. They're lacking the 200 million assets under management, and they're lacking more than 1 year worth of data. I feel that that's a good score for a very new fund. I think that gives me a little more safety. I'm not selling anything. I'm going to just take a little bit of money coming in from some of these different mutual funds, and I'm going to build this out over time, and I'm going to hold it. I think this is another diversification play of a diversified portfolio to have a little international exposure to your portfolio, and not just the S&P 500, and not just the NASDAQ, and not just the Russell, but a well-diversified portfolio. Until next time, God bless.